This Liberty Sports Update is brought to you by Beacon Credit Union.
Definitely was an exciting game Saturday. Really proud of how our young men responded. Last few weeks we did not represent this great university, and just to see how we responded, Coach allowed us to be more physical in practice. I think we saw the results against Troy. The 3.4 yards per carry is exactly where we want to be when it comes to stopping the run. Third down, I was very pleased. Held them for 15. And then when you look at our ability to be able to play a lot of young men, we had some freshmen that really stepped up. I was glad for their confidence. The thing that we told them on Sunday is enjoy the process. It was the process that allowed us to improve. Not complaining, not making excuses, but trust the process. And so that's the mindset as we prepare for Idaho State. Very good football team coming in here. When you watch their film, they're very dynamic on offense, led by their quarterback, Tanner. He's a very good football player. He manages the offense very well. Very encouraged by just what he was able to do in the games that he played, especially California. When you look at the game against Cal Berkeley, he definitely showed that he can manage a game. And then you look at their running backs. They got two very good running backs that run very hard, run downhill. And then he has that 1-2 punch with his brother. And so we know that this is a very good football team coming in, and Coach Gill did a great job of sharing with the young men that, there's so much parity now in college football that all it takes is 60 minutes of playing well, and you can find yourself winning any football game. And so our challenge to our young men today is to make sure we continue to trust the process, not get distracted, and make sure we're focused and ready to go to represent Liberty University in a great way on Saturday.
Asked you about it after the game last week, but going to the booth, what were the biggest advantages for you just as far as getting the calls in and being able to see everything down below?
Yes, just the ability to see it. I was able to get the calls in much quicker. You're able to just get a feel of who's coming in the game earlier. Even when they huddled up, I can tell with my own eyes who was getting ready to come on the field. Some young men were in the crowd, but their helmet was off, or you can tell their body language that they wasn't getting ready to go in. So that allowed me to be more diverse on what we call P&10, the start of the series, than I've ever been on the sideline. And so that was a great learning tool for me to build my confidence. Like I said, I've never really been in the box throughout my coaching career. I love being around the young men, but the previous Sunday, it really dawned on me because it's been on my mind for a while that, it's about what's best for this program. And so real excited about actually being in the box because, like I said, I see for myself how much more I can see the game.
What's the message to your players now to be able to sustain a week of success like you had on defense against Troy and carry it over to Idaho State instead of having a letdown, as we've seen a couple times this year, particularly from half to half?
Just trusting the process. That's the one thing that I will continue to get across to our young men, that life is about patterns. Life is about being able to be the same person no matter what. And for 18 to 23, even us as adults, that's the hardest thing to do, is trust the routine and not allow distractions or disappointments in life to cause you to sway from that. And so that's the message. That's the message we spoke to them about after each game. And so I think now that we've had a little success, hopefully they value the process.
Given that Idaho State has such good offensive numbers, does that make it easier to get your players' attention with them than to maybe treat them as an FCS school coming in here?
Well, for me personally and as a coach, I really don't focus on the numbers when it comes to our opponents. I always try to get across to them, and our coaching staff, we have the same mindset. It's about us. Because sometimes you can overdo that, and you have young men thinking more than what they need to. What we talk about is, hey, we got to make sure we align and assign, do our technique, and as we know, the issue for us thus far this year has been tackling. And that's the message we've been continuing to get across to our young men. And my goal is this week we continue that, because if we do that, we'll be able to continue to play at a level that I know we're capable of playing at.
How was the tackling last week?
Much better. We was probably in the 90 percentile of proficiency with tackling, and that's what we want. And tackling is about confidence. You know, in my coaching career, to where when I GA'd how we practice to where we practice now, it's a lot different. And so defensively, you got to get young men to the point where they trust their technique in the open space. The ball is on the perimeter a lot faster now than when I first started coaching. And so you got to get young men to really believe that you can go make that tackle with confidence. And so I think the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the time that we've implemented that in practice is carried over because the young men are hungry. And that's why I always say I believe in our young men because they believe in us. And we never lost that. Even though we struggled, these young men always came back on Tuesday, Coach, what do we need to do to get better? And that's all you can ask for.
Quarterback pass for 8 touchdowns, over 400 yards against Idaho. What unique challenges does he present?
He has confidence, and he knows how to manage the game. Like I said, we're going to have to do a great job early in the game to keep the ball in front. We have to do that because if we allow him to have some success early, then it can be a long game. But, you know, our young men right now, they truly understand what we need to get done. You know, coverage-wise, I was very pleased last week with the communication. I do believe having Coach Roberts down on the field, it allowed us to address some things between times when we were on the sideline in comparison to me communicating with all 3 groups. That's the linebackers, corners, and the safeties. You know, Coach Roberts was able to address the corners, and then Coach Bookbinder was able to address the linebackers in a 2 to 3 minute span. And so I saw the results of us being a lot more detailed because we had the time to do that by having the position coaches down there.
We asked Turner about the pressure you were able to get last week, 8 TFLs, 4 sacks. He says, we're not really in a blitzing type of defense. Do you sense be able to do that a little bit more now after what you saw last week?
Yes. You know, it always boils down to personnel, and I really feel that we are getting young men that allow us to be a lot more aggressive. One, in the back end, we're playing much better man coverage. Where seeing it from the box, I felt comfortable. Even when we gave up 2 big plays, I never felt like our corners and our safeties could not go against those receivers. And then when you add in some of our young men that are very athletic, just young, you talk about an Austin Lewis, a J.R. Sanders. Those young men are going to allow us to do a lot of good things here in the future. And, you know, we got great talent even with our older young men, but you need depth. And so my goal is always to try to be as aggressive as I can, but it's always based on personnel. And I can tell you, we got some young guys, even that we redshirted, that's going to allow us to do some very good things when it comes to bringing pressure.
With the balance they possess on offense, especially with their running game and their ability to hurt you there, what kind of challenges do they really possess for you this week, talking about Idaho State?
Well, you know, like I said, they are very efficient. They do a great job of run-pass tendencies, so you can't really get a beat. Formationally, they do a lot of things when it comes to doing things with the same formation. And so, you know, our goal is going to boil down, we got to be able to fit our gaps. We're going to have to keep the ball in front. And once we get a feel of what their MO is going to be that game, because each game they've had a little tendency, we'll be able to do some things that I think allow us to be successful.
Do you plan on thudding for the rest of the year? A couple players last week said they felt being more physical during the week would benefit the team over the long run.
I would love to, and I will leave it at that.
You mentioned Austin Lewis. He had a crucial sack Saturday. What have you seen out of him as a true freshman, being able to make such a big impact early on in his career, especially against such a good program in Troy?
Well, you know, Austin Lewis, he has a chance to be very special. We knew that when we recruited him. I think it's just going to boil down to Coach Singletary doing what he does best, is continue to develop him. The light bulb each game has gotten brighter and brighter for him. And then you can see that even in practice. He's asking good questions. He's not making the same mistakes that he did during camp. He's starting to see alignments and splits of O linemen. He's starting to see the backfield backfield splits. And, we're starting to see what we thought we would see right around about the right time. Coach Gill always says, right around October, you'll know if a young man is going to get that light bulb. And sometimes it's disappointing early in the season, but you're thankful when those moments occur because we still got a lot of football ahead of us this season, and he's going to help us immensely.
Speaking of light bulbs, you said after Saturday's game that the light bulb went off for a lot of players. What did you see that allowed you to know that things were starting to click?
Well, just seeing it from the box and the confidence that you had, like I said, mentioning a young man's name, J.R. Sanders. You talk about Austin Lewis. You talk about Aaron Pierre. You talk about Remington Green. These are young men that early in the season, they wasn't playing as fast. They had a couple of issues when it came to some of the calls that we made early in the season. We didn't have those issues when they went in. And so I know their confidence went up. My confidence in them has gone up immensely. The position coaches, we watched the film on Sunday, and we're saying, can you believe this young man was in for that many snaps, and it was not a drop-off. And like I said, it's just the timing is coming, and that's what we talk about, growing pains and trusting the process. Because if you continue to trust the process and the young men believe, the tide will turn.
Tell me a little bit about Elijah Benton and how much he's grown since he's been here, going from walk-on to scholarship and just his progress.
See, when you hit me with that, that's when I get emotional. Because he came in as a walk-on, and he came in as a corner. And if you talk to him, he'll tell you, Coach Frank Rocco did a great job with him at LCA, but it's just growing pains. And to see how much he's grown, how much he's matured. We give him the nickname Hawk. I gave him the nickname Hawk because he wouldn't talk. So I used to make him scream at practice 2 years ago. I used to make him scream at practice. I used to say, Hawk, give me one. And he would have to scream. But now to see the confidence that he plays at, the conversations that we have on the field, the preparation during practice. As I tell everybody, that's what it's about. You want to see young men grow. You want to see young men develop. You want to tell young men when they don't believe in themselves, you believe in them. And then when they start believing in themselves, it makes you proud.
You mentioned Aaron Pierre, and he played, when you had him in there, he played up close to the line of scrimmage, similar to what he did against Army. Is that a position where you feel he's most comfortable at, being close to the line of scrimmage, where he doesn't really have to think, he just has to go out there and play?
No, it's just, we're just utilizing the talent based on the scheme. We're trying to find ways to get young men like him the ability to play. Our safeties are playing at a high level, but we think after that Army game, he showed that he can be productive. So our goal is to find ways to help him be productive because he's shown us he can help us. So right now, this year, he's been working a little bit more with Coach Bookbinder because, like I said, when we went to the Army game, we had him in a role that was closer to the line of scrimmage. Coach Bookbinder's done a great job with him. And so right now, he's just showing us that he can help us.
There were 3 personal foul penalties. How much of that was aggression versus, just bonehead plays?
Well, when you're talking about Jesse Lemonier, if you watch him in practice, I would say it's just aggression. It's just our job is to teach him how to control that and not allow that energy to cost us, especially when you do it multiple times. And I thought Coach Gill handled it very well on the sideline. He did a great job of communicating it on Sunday. And like I said, we don't want it to become a pattern because when it becomes a pattern, that's when we have issues.
Speaking of those, were you given an explanation for what the unsportsmanlike call was on the sideline there after Bajor's interception?
Yes, we had a young man that really, in my opinion, was the right call. He kind of showboating. That's not what we're about. I will say this: I think he was thankful I wasn't on the sideline anymore, because, like I said, that we don't tolerate that. This game is about sportsmanship. This game is about treating people the right way, and we do things in between the lines.
Coach, how much was Saturday's great defensive show kind of a response to criticism that the defense has dealt with and kind of having your backs to the wall coming into that game?
Well, I will say this. I never felt like my back or our defensive back was against the wall. It's just about getting better. I just want to see our young men play at the highest level. That's it. make sure that we trust the process to know that we can be a very good defense. And so for me, Saturday was just the product of the young men trusting the process. 2 weeks ago, they could have just started complaining and why we got to do all this, why we're 5 games into the season, nobody's hitting. That's not the case. I've been around that before. And that's when I knew we had something special, because when you got young men saying, Coach, I just want to get better, whatever we need to do to get better, that lets you know you just got to continue to trust the process, and they're believing in you, and you got to keep that going. So Saturday's results to me is just the byproduct of trusting the process. And now we got to keep that going and keep the patterns in place that will allow us to be successful.
With their quarterback's ability to kind of take off and run at the drop of a hat, what kind of challenges does that pose for you?
That's always a challenge. Anytime you're facing a dual threat quarterback, you got to get the young men to understand the importance of doing their job, especially in the back end, and being able to rally. And as I stated before previously in times, cage the cat, to where we don't take poor angles that the quarterback cross our face and we don't have anybody else to rally to him.